All right, hello and welcome to this environmental news update. We're going to talk a lot about some good news and some bad news, so some real bad news for some really bad, ugly plans that are possibly trying to be snuck through in Toms River. But first, let's talk about what's going on Long Island. All right, so the first thing I want to show you in this environmental news update here is this mess here that the DEC did in Rocky Point Preserve. They were widening this is a fire break trail, but they managed to widen it and make a mess when they did it, and unfortunately knocked down quite a bit of trees. You can see here some of the pictures here of the trees that were knocked down along this fire break path. Now, fire break paths do have to be maintained, but this is kind of a sloppy job by the DEC. But there's a lot worse going on that we're going to talk about in this update. The second thing that we want to talk about here is the PGA at Bethpage State Park. Unfortunately, the whole park is closed off, but the point that this guy shared on, it looks like somebody running for Senate, and he's speaking up about the fact that the PGA, I don't know how he got in. Maybe there is a way to get into the park, but you can't drive there. But they look at this, all these SUVs here that they're using for transportation at the PGA. And we're going to get a larger picture here. Look at all these SUVs. These are all. Look at all these SUVs. I mean, this is disgusting. This is exactly the problem we have. Look at all the greenhouse gas. These things. Why do they need these giant SUVs? Why do they need these giant SUVs? It's ridiculous. And the only thing that I want to talk about before we get to some big news, larger news stories. Well, yeah, Bill de Blasio is running for president, and he's running for president. He claims he cares about the environment. He was protesting in the bottom of Trump Tower about having a Green New Deal. He's driven around in his SUV all day. He doesn't take the subway. Bill de Blasio is a hypocrite. He is a hypocrite, and in driving around huge SUV, he does not care about the environment. He doesn't care about mass transit. He doesn't take the subway. This is exactly the problem with Bill de Blasio. Meanwhile, the city is spiraling out of control with crime and homelessness and vagrancy across much of the city because he won't let the police do their job. Bill de Blasio is the definition of an elitist. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is the hills at Quogue. The Barrens Commission has asserted its role in judging whether this development is permissible, and it's a beautiful area, as you see in this picture that I was able to find. Just a beautiful, sandy, piney area. So let's get to the article. Okay, I want to read to you this article from 27 East. Some good news for Long Island. The Barrens Commission has reaffirmed jurisdiction over the East Quogue Golf Course proposal. So the Central Pine Barrens, this is the Hills at Quogue proposal that is in that area, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But the Central Pine Barrens Commission officially reaffirmed jurisdiction over a proposal to build a luxury golf course resort in East Quogue, approving a resolution saying so at the meeting on Wednesday afternoon. The Commission has previously asserted jurisdiction over a similar iteration of the project known as the Hills at Southampton back in October 2015. At the Commission's meeting on Wednesday, held at the Wertheim National Wildlife Refuge in Shirley, John Milazzo, who serves as a special counsel to the Barrens Commission, explained that given the similarity between the hills and the development's new moniker, the Lewis Road Planned Residential District, the Commission's jurisdiction was still valid. He added that the resolution, which passed with 4 votes in favor and 1 abstention, essentially tightens up the Commission's pre-existing assertion. Additionally, the resolution explained that the Commission would continue to have jurisdiction over the project even if it undergoes another name change. Any potential projects that were described as being substantially similar to the Hills or the Lewis Road PRD also fall under the Commission's reaffirmed jurisdiction. As part of the resolution proposed by Brookhaven Town Supervisor Edward Romaine, the Commission's review of the project will commence upon the Southampton Town Planning's board's completion of the applicant's preliminary application. The Planning Board is currently in the process of determining whether an additional environmental impact statement, or EIS, is needed in order to move forward with the project. 30 days following that determination, the Commission then reserves the right to review the project and make a determination as to whether it complies with the Barrens Commission Act. The Commission acknowledges its current inability to determine the full scope of the Lewis Road application because of the Planning Board's ongoing review and potential for modifications. The resolution read, "I want us to review the final project," Mr. Romaine added. "I am willing to wait until the Planning Board acts. Following the Planning Board's determination, the Barrens Commission will compile a selective list of elements to review. The Regulatory Board is then required by law to release the details of the application to the Commission." Mr. Romaine's resolution was modified slightly after Southampton Town Supervisor Jay Schneiderman, who also sits on the Barrens Commission, raised the question as to whether the Commission's previous assertion was still applicable. Originally, Mr. Romaine's resolution asked board members to vote on asserting jurisdiction over the developer's revised proposal. However, after advice from Mr. Milazzo, the resolution was modified to reaffirm jurisdiction rather than to assert it. Prior to that modification, Discovery Lands representative Wayne Brian of Southampton-based O'Shea, Marcook, and Brune wrote a letter to the Barrens Commission arguing that Mr. Romaine's resolution was unlawful under the Barrens Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The letter, Mr. Romaine said, had only been circulated among the members of the Barrens Commission. He called it absolutely inappropriate that a draft copy of his proposed resolution made its way into Mr. Brune's hands. In his letter to the Commission, Mr. Brune referenced the draft agenda item. He pointed to a section 4.5.6 of the Land Use Plan, which explains that the Commission can adopt a sense resolution, essentially a notice of action or intent, only if certain circumstances apply. It reads, "With respect to a development project undergoing review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act by another government agency, which is also a pending application being processed and reviewed by the Commission." Mr. Brune argued that the developer's application is currently under review only by the Southampton Town Planning Board. However, under the developer's original proposal, the Hills at Southampton, the Commission was considered an involved agency. According to Mr. Milazzo, the original SEQRA review triggered a clause in the Barrens Protection Act that automatically gave the Commission jurisdiction over the project. The Commission automatically asserts jurisdiction over any project proposed to be built in the Barrens Critical Resource Area or has been determined as a development of regional significance. The previous EIS found the project to be a development of regional significance as it constituted a development project resulting in a traffic impact which would reduce service by 2 levels below existing conditions or a level of service of D or below. Details of the former project never made it to the Commission. However, shortly after the SEQRA determination, the project in its entirety was denied by the Southampton Town Board. The Commissioners believe that they are entitled to reaffirm jurisdiction as the Lewis Road PRD project is substantially similar to the Hills. In fact, Dick Amper, Executive Director of the Long Island Pine Barrens Society, argued that the developers, as well as Mr. Brian, have already testified that the projects are identical. He said that the applicant's representatives did so at the Planning Board meeting earlier this year when arguing the supplemental environmental impact study was unnecessary. At the time, Mr. Brian, sorry, it's hard for me to pronounce that name, had pointed to a SEQRA compliance analysis completed by the Melville-based Nelson, Pope, and Voorhees, which found the revisions to the original proposal to be inconsequential. Charles Voorhees, who was hired by Discovery Land to complete the report, referred to several aspects of the developer's plan, which he wrote are identical to the Hills. By design, the Lewis Road Plan Residential District incorporates all of the on-site aspects and features of the Hills Plan Development District with respect to the groundwater and surface water and health protection. The report said, in this way, the Lewis Road PRD would, like the Hills PDD, not result in any significant impacts on the groundwater or surface water resources. As a result, the proposed project is consistent with the finding statement and no significant adverse impact is expected. In this vein, Mr. Amper argued, the Barrens Commission can review this project as both the current and past project are identical. Mr. Milazzo added, if it's represented to the Commission that the project is the same, the jurisdiction is still valid. All right, so the Quogue property is we already know it's located right here. Here's the dwarf pines, and here is the planned the area where they want to build this development. Now, the good thing is the Barrens Commission is involved, and hopefully this will be rejected just like the last project. And this developer needs to realize that he can't build his development here, and that he should just sell the land to the county or the town for preservation. I'm glad that the Barrens Commission is reviewing this, but this project still isn't completely out of the picture yet until it's rejected completely, and the land is, like I said, I think this is a case for eminent domain, and they need to come in and seize this land from the developer and finally put this project to bed once and for all. Now, this project is not as bad as some of the developments that you will see later in this video that have been proposed for New Jersey, but it's still a very bad project. It's going to include a luxury homes and a golf course. It's not needed, and definitely not needed, especially when golf courses are struggling across Long Island. A lot of the privately owned ones are anyway. The other area that we have to look at here is EPCAL. There's been some news in that, and that is that the town is thinking about trying to get out of this deal, and I think they should. I think this. You know the way I feel about this. It should not be sold to a 555, which is by and large backed by a mega mall developer, who you can read the articles below, who could cause a lot of problems with this. This should just be preserved. Most of this and development should be confined to this area right here in the middle, and the runways. But the rest of this needs to be left alone in its natural state. And I'm glad to see people in the town are realizing that, and hopefully put a stop to this EPCAL plan once and for all, because first of all, they're getting this for a bargain, and not only that, it's going to be bad for the environment. We know, we know how beautiful it is here. We'll take a look here. They do have a street view, actually. This is an old street view from October 2012, but you can see you have this just beautiful grassland, and then you have pine barrens, and then just look at this beautiful open space here, and you can see so far. Look at that. Let's not have a bunch of buildings mar this view. Let's keep this view open here. It's beautiful, and we need to keep it that way. And people are starting to realize that, I think. So that's some good news in that regard. We know how beautiful the EPCAL property is, and that we really need to preserve it. News 12 even did a story on this, so I'm very glad even News 12 covered this, because this is a beautiful place that must be preserved, and I'm glad the town is finally taking an interest in it. Now we head over to our next story, and this is in New Jersey, and the developments that keep getting proposed are just unimaginable. So I'm going to read to you this story about what's going on in Toms River. All right, so let me read this article to you on this plan in Toms River, which is absolutely crazy. So it's titled 6,400 Homes on Saiba Gaigi, a Coronado and Gilmore planned city within a city in Toms River. According to screenshots of emails released by the New Jersey Globe and Patch, township officials under the direction of convicted Republican Chairman George Gilmore have joined in discussions with Gilmore's client, developer Jack Morris, and the current owner of the Saiba Gaigi property, BASF, or BASF. You may remember BASF for making the tapes way back in the day. Anyway, according to those reports, Toms River mayoral candidate Joe Coronado was handpicked by George Gilmore because he supports Gilmore's plan for Saiba Gaigi. When the Asbury Park press called Coronado, he had no comment. Roughly the size of Hoboken at 1.25 square miles, the Seba property is the largest continuous piece of undeveloped land in Toms River. Of the 1,400 acres, 300 are considered to be too contaminated for residential construction, leaving only 1,100 acres available for development. At medium densities, the land could easily support 6,400 new homes, that's 6,400 new homes or more at higher densities. Republican Councilman Dan Roderick, who was running against Coronado in the primary for mayor, is the only candidate in Toms River that has come out in opposition of the project. He told the New Jersey Globe, "I promised the residents of this community that I would stop overdevelopment. Now these greedy lunatics want to develop an area the size of Hoboken on the site of the Toms River Cancer Cluster. I will not let that happen, which is why I'm running against Joe Coronado in the Republican primary." Prior to his role as prosecutor, Coronado worked as an attorney for developers, fighting to approve countless development applications before the Toms River Township Planning and Zoning Boards. Coronado even fought for the approvals of Riverhead Chase and Cox Crow Crossing, both high-density multifamily projects on the Lakewood border. Unbelievable. On March 4th, a judge approved the Eagle Ridge Golf Course Development Plan in Lakewood, allowing 1,000 new residential units to be built on just 170 acres. Seba Geigy is 8 times the size of Eagle Ridge and would be the largest development project in Ocean County. There's a scheme now set in Toms River that is going to create one of the largest developments in all of Ocean County. And where is it? It's on the former property of the Seba Geigy plant. You're looking at it right here. So here's downtown Toms River, and here is this whole expanse of largely undeveloped land. Some of it is contaminated and cannot be developed, but they want to turn most of this into a huge residential development. And this also is along the headwater. This is also right along the Toms River, which is right here. So it caused a lot of pollution. And of course, much of this property is pine barrens and should be preserved. This should not become a big development. But yet, the existing Toms River government is trying to sneak this development through anyway. There's already another development that the article mentions, the Eagle Ridge Golf Club, which is over here. And that's this area right here that they are going to be building a very high-density development. This is in Lakewood. So, and we also have rumors that they're building more developments over here as well. You can see these new developments going up constantly. And a lot of this, again, it's the Hasidic community that has the Orthodox Hasidic community that is funding a lot of this stuff, and unfortunately it seems they have a lot of corruption and a lot of power over the government in this area, and it's really outrageous. So as you can see, this is a big area, and imagine the traffic this is going to cause. So let me show you some of what the roads are like here, so you can get an idea of what the way this area is like now. All right, you can see it's mostly wooded. All right, the Seba Geigy property is off on the left side right here. You can see it's pine barrens, and some of it is contaminated, but a lot of it is beautiful wilderness pine barrens that they want to destroy. Let me tell you something. That the amount of destruction that's going on in New Jersey and the speed at which it's happening dwarfs anything that's ever happened in the history of Long Island. And so this is the entrance to it. Obviously, you can't go in here right now. It's owned by BASF, and it's private property. And not to mention, like I said, some of it is contaminated. It's a Superfund site, and there was actually a whole book written about the pollution that came off this site that was kept as a secret from people. I think it was called Toms River. So this is something that is a terrible idea. But, you know, it seems like the corruption in New Jersey, particularly in Ocean County, is getting out of control. This, you know, the Hasidic community is going to be moving in here as well, taking this over as well. And Toms River will be the next town they will ruin. They have already ruined Lakewood, but now they are going to Toms River, and they want to ruin Toms River too. When is it ever going to stop? So again, this is the article I just read to you right here. 6,400 homes on a Ciba-Geigy property, and these are some of the emails that have gone between the town and the developer, and I think this is an outrage. So this is outrageous, But the good news is there's a primary, and obviously this Coronado guy needs to be out. He needs to be out. He's like a Saladino, all right, pretty much. He's going to ruin Tom's River. If this is going to ruin Tom's River, that's all there is to it. If they get away with this, Tom's River is done. It's ruined. Anyway, that brings this environmental news update to an end. So, some hope on Long Island. Government's trying to finally wake up and realize that we got to stop the overdevelopment. But unfortunately, in New Jersey, it seems, unfortunately, the government there is not doing much of anything to stop it, particularly in Tom's River and Lakewood. So, hopefully, the government will wake up there soon and realize that this insanity has to end. Lakewood is an out-of-control disaster, and we can't allow it to spread. But anyway, that wraps up this environmental news update. Take care, and thank you for watching.